Well, I seem late to the party on this one. Yeah, I know this movie came out back in December, but I'm literally having to review like over 20 movies for Marvel, so give me a break. I mean, honestly, I got no respect, as Rodney Dangerfield would say, but yeah, I'm of course reviewing Bumblebee, and I had this cool little minifigure that I have here still in its packaging. Now, this was at the AMC theater in which I saw it at. They were having a little thing in which if you showed your ticket, you would actually be able to get this little tiny minifigure, which is nice. Now, the day that I saw Bumblebee, I actually didn't see this in the theater, sadly. I wanted to, but the problem is that the day that I went to the movies, which was December 22nd, I still remember the day, we were split into two groups. One got to see Bumblebee, and the other got to see Spider-Man. And to give you a little background information, I have 8 members in my family, including my parents. Out of all the people that wanted to go see Spider-Man with me, only my sister came with me. So everybody else wanted to go see Bumblebee while me and my sister went to go see Spider-Man. In fact, I actually had the Blu-ray with me here. It actually just came to yesterday in the mail. Great movie. Still love it. The more that I watch it, the more I just fall in love with this movie even more. I think it might be tied as my favorite superhero film of all time. It's tied with Batman from 1989. This possibly might be my favorite superhero movie of all time. It's tied with Batman, that's for certain, but I don't know. I love this movie, but I digress. So, little history of the Transformers film franchise. It all started back in 2007 when Michael Bay ended up directing the first live-action film in the franchise. This isn't the first film to have the Transformers in them. There was an animated movie that came out in 1986, which I really love. I love that movie. It's so 80s. It's great. 2007, the first one, I actually do kind of like. It's stupid and it's a dumb action movie, but as dumb action movies go, it's fine. The sequels, on the other hand, though, the less said about those turds, the better. But yeah. This is actually supposed to be a soft reboot of the franchise, as it is set in the 80s. It's set in the year 1987. And it follows Charlie Watkins, I know her name's Charlie, played by Hailee Steinfeld, Spider-Gwen from Into the Spider-Verse. And she ends up discovering Bumblebee in a junkyard, and she ends up taking care of it. Now, here's something that I really love about this movie. I love the first half of this movie. The first half of this movie is really solid setup. Hailee Steinfeld is great through all of it. I think this might actually be my favorite movie that she's done. It might be that or Edge of 17. Oh, and speaking of which, the movie was directed by Travis Knight, who was responsible for Coraline and Kubo and the Two Strings, those really good stop-motion animated movies. And it was written by Christina Hodson. However, from what I've heard, there was a rewrite done by Kelly Fremont Craig, who was actually the writer and director of The Edge of 17, also starring Hailee Steinfeld, but she didn't get credited for it. And from what I've heard, it does keep the basics of Hodson's screenplay, but they do introduce a couple of new elements, like the whole opening on Cybertron. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, a lot of positives to this movie. I've already stated them. Hailee Steinfeld is awesome. This feels like a legitimately good movie that's actually well made. Like, with base films, the color grading was a bit off, so everybody looked like a carrot. The color grading is actually correct in this movie. There's no scenes in which annoying parents are just trying to get high and they make dumb jokes. And they don't scream all the time. They don't do that. There's no scenes of two dogs humping each other, so that's a plus. But I think probably my biggest problem with this movie is the fact that it feels way too similar to E.T. Like, it sort of has beat by beat, like, the elements of how to, of E.T., like, Charlie discovers Bumblebee. Bumblebee ends up, when Charlie's gone, hold on 1 second. Sorry about that, I had to spit out a piece of gum because it made me a bit inaudible, is what I'm trying to say. It's like, you couldn't hear me as well, but yeah. There's a scene in which Bumblebee, he goes out on his own when he pretty much just wrecks the living room while Charlie is gone. The military come by because a bunch of Decepticons from Cybertron ultimately come and alert a general played by John Cena, who there was rumors going on the fact that he was actually going to be playing a live-action G.I. Joe, which would have been very interesting. But okay, now it feels like I feel like there's a way too many similar elements to E.T., but I do feel like the fact that they are able to make it its own unique thing. Like, for example, I know I've said this way too many times before. Hailee Steinfeld is really good in this movie. I really do like her past in the fact that she was a diver, but she doesn't feel comfortable with that anymore because her dad died, and that was something that her dad encouraged her to do. Also, another thing that's similar to E.T., Elliot's father, he left. Same thing happened here. Charlie's father, he's gone. But this really does feel like a legitimately good time. Like, you can actually enjoy this movie. Like, this is a solid movie. Love the designs of all the Transformers, by the way. Love how the fact that they didn't stick with the Bayformer versions of Transformers, but they literally look like CGI versions of, like, the original, like, Generation 1 Transformers from the 80s cartoon. Which is probably what they should have been designed for to begin with, but that is besides the point. Now, even though John Cena, he is a really good actor. Like, he actually did another comic movie called Blockers, which is actually a very, very funny movie. If you do have the chance to do it, check it out. It's actually pretty hilarious. I think he actually has a pretty good career as an actor. And a lot of people feel like that his whole storyline feels like a way too corny and a bit over the top, which I kind of feel like that this is sort of the point because, it's the 80s and all that. But, yeah, Bumblebee. I'm really glad the fact that the sequel is happening to this. I really do hope the fact that Travis Knight does return to direct, but from what I've heard, he might not come back to direct because he wants to go back to Lucaria, the whole studio behind Kubo and the Two Strings, Coraline. They're going to be doing the upcoming Missing Link movie as well, the one about Bigfoot. But he said that he actually does have a couple ideas for a Bumblebee sequel. And one of the producers for the Transformers movies, I'm forgetting his name, but he says the fact that there actually are being sequels for not only the Transformers Last Night, but a Bumblebee sequel is in the works, and Optimus Prime is going to be in the Bumblebee sequel. And also, I love how I also want to point out one other major criticism is that it sort of feels a bit similar to Iron Giant, but here's the thing though, here's my major criticism. With the Iron Giant, before he ends up, because, Bumblebee ends up having a whole amnesia subplot in which he has no idea who he is. It's not until very later on into the movie that he actually remembers who he is, and he actually can speak, and Dylan O'Brien from the Maze Runner movies, he's actually the voice of Bumblebee. Or B127 as he's known. He ends up getting a Decepticon ends up attacking him, and he ends up getting amnesia. And he doesn't remember who he is, and he can't speak. And it's very sort of similar to the Iron Giant, in which he doesn't remember who he is. But it's sort of weird to see Bumblebee acting this way, because you actually did get to see... With the Iron Giant, he was essentially nothing. He was just a machine that was made to destroy stuff. But with Bumblebee, he actually thought. He actually was a person with... robot. A person, in quotation marks. I know he's a robot, but whatever. And you did get to know his personality, and it is kind of weird seeing him act this way, but it is kind of nice but these are just nitpicks. This is a really, really, really solid Transformers movie, and I really hope that they actually do make a sequel to this. Please. Bumblebee. If I were to give it a score, I would give it an 8 out of 10, because it's a really, really good movie. Check it out. So, yeah. I know the fact that I said that my next video was going to be a review of Iron Man and Thor: The Dark World. I haven't gotten a chance to do that because I have been busy, because, school's starting back up because I just got off of a break. And I'm also trying to be able to figure out how exactly I'm going to plan out my schedule, like what movies am I going to watch on what specific day. So I'm hoping that maybe the next video that I will do is definitely going to be a review of Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World. So Stay tuned for those videos, and as always, stay gold.